Emergency podcast territory. Ryan Jensen claimed by the Twins. The Marlins lose Ryan Jensen after one of the longest DFA limbo stints in the history of DFA limbo stints. Guys, this whole episode will not be about Ryan Jensen being claimed by the Twins. No, we are talking about three arms. Breakout is the wrong word. Three arms that need to deliver for the Marlins in 2024. This is Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. It's your daily Marlins podcast. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Miami Marlins _UK. If you're listening to the pod, of course, hit subscribe. Leave a review. This is your team every day. And thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. There is a YouTube channel as well. Make sure you hit subscribe right over there too. That channel is also called Locked On Marlins. Easy to find, easy to remember, easy to navigate to. This episode is sponsored by our good friends over at FanDuel. Yes, sir. Of course it is. You can make... No. Wrong line. Great start. You can score early this NFL season. America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150. If your team wins, just visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. Not entirely sure that was the correct script for that correct segment. Nevertheless, we move. I think you got the gist of it. Show is sponsored by FanDuel. You heard the offer. We're all good. All good to go. Guys, here we go. Day 2, episode 2 of 2024. Hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode. I thought it was a fun one. Did anyone see Jazz Chisholm hitting just crazy home runs in some BP practice? He looks like he's having a lot of fun, but hitting the ball well. Eyes emoji. It's my breakout candidate of the year for the Marlins in 2024. The most unbravest pick ever in a sense of not risking too much. Or maybe I am. I'm betting on Jazz's health. For some, that is money they're happy to take. So we talked about offensive guys yesterday. Today, I want to talk about arms. 3 arms to watch. That's the way I'm phrasing it. I don't think breakouts is exactly the right way of phrasing it. It's just 3 arms to watch. However, before we start this episode, get into the meat and potatoes of that one, we have to bring you the news. There is news that Ryan Jensen, I'm not even certain that I've spelled his name correctly on the graphics here. Anyway, Ryan Jensen, who the Marlins claimed off the waivers a month ago, month and a half, 2 months. How long ago was it? I don't even know. Ryan Jensen was claimed. He was then DFA'd. He is now being claimed by the Twins. So Ryan Jensen will be headed over to Minnesota. So his Marlins career was short, very short. Didn't end up pitching at all for the Marlins. We'll wait to see what he can do with Minnesota. But with the Marlins, as we've seen, they will, they continue to just add arms and arms and arms and arms, and they'll just see where things fall. And so in reality, this is kind of a good segue into this episode today. The 3 arms I'm going to talk about are all arms that we know in many ways. They're names that we know. That's how I'd started. They're all names that we're familiar with in some ways, some more than others. But for the Marlins to continue in the pathway or the trajectory that they have been on, obviously after a great 23 with Sandy down, we know that the main thing from a pitching perspective, well, there's a few main things, but the main one is covering Sandy Alcantara's innings. They weren't the highest of highest quality innings compared to previous years from Sandy. They were still good. And equally, I've mentioned this on the show many times, like there is now a new normal from a pitching perspective, and the numbers and the, everything going into the rule changes. Like we need to see more data on that to work out like how good or bad are numbers now. Like, what is the new baseline of like Cy Young? What is the baseline of top 20? Because the ERAs took a tick up. Pitchers are being asked to work quicker. They tire quicker. Everything's against them at this point. They're trying to get them working faster. Shifts of being restricted, etc., etc. So, Sandy's innings will need to be replaced, albeit, it's in some ways, if you end up with 180 innings of 4 ERA, then that's kind of good. That's kind of what Sandy delivered. And the Marlins, with the pitching unit, with Sandy in there in 23, it was good. So that's what we're looking for. It doesn't have to be sub 2 ERA, 200 innings. That's maybe not realistic at this point. So where do we start? And I think where we should start, for me, this is the linchpin. This is the main difference maker. Because in reality, this guy could be the guy that replaces a ton of Sandy's innings. Let me just call it out right now. The rotation that we expect, there's 4 guys, I think, that are nailed on. And actually, I think there's 5 guys that are nailed on. And we'll talk about it now. But Jesus Luzardo, not traded yet, by the way. Jesus Luzardo, Yuri Perez, Braxton Garrett. That's your top 3. Top 3 guys for certain. 4th, Eddie Cabrera. 5th guy, and this is, whether he pitches in the 5th spot, I don't know. Trevor Rogers. For me, Trevor Rogers, and this is where, like, from a Marlins perspective at this point, if Trevor's going to be good for 2024, then that takes a huge amount of pressure off everyone associated with the Marlins in terms of like the rotation of the innings. Because really, you replace Sandy with Trevor and you get a full season out of Trevor if he can find his way back. And it's Trevor Rogers like in 2021, then we're all good to go. Happy days. Sandy down, Trevor in. It's not 1 for 1. It's not like for like, but what we've seen with Trevor, particularly in 21, was flashes of ace potential, obviously. And I think with Trevor Rogers, when I was thinking about this episode and thinking about him, firstly, it feels like a long time ago since Trevor was really good, right? Like, that was the main thing. I was like, wow, it feels like 5 years since like that season. In my head, for some reason, I was like, oh yeah, this season that Trevor really kind of dominated was 2020, but it wasn't. It was 2021. He did pitch in 2020, but it was 2021. He started 25 games for the Marlins and ended with a 2.64 ERA. It was absolutely sensational. A sensational campaign. He was robbed for Rookie of the Year by a guy called Jonathan India, who just kind of got hot at the right end, at the back end. But Trevor was the Rookie of the Year. It was pretty clear. But, Jonathan India, flare hairdo, pretty sexy name, everything going on. I get it. Nevertheless, for Trevor Rogers, 2022, we're expecting him to, I don't know if step forward was the what we were expecting after a 2.64 ERA. I think maybe a slight regression, perhaps, maybe to like a 3.5 ERA. For 2022, it was terrible. Terrible season. It was 2 things. Poor performance early on and later in the year injury. The poor performance, Trevor just couldn't get his starts going. It felt like every time in that first inning or second inning, he'd run into tons of trouble. And then he'd maybe settle in. It felt like, with him, he came into 22, was trying to make some adjustments, trying to make himself better, trying to add to his repertoire. Feels like he threw everything else off. Like, his core was a nice fastball. Obviously, he's a lefty. A nice fastball, and worked off that. A really nice changeup. He then tried to add this slider in and whatever. And I think it all just threw things off. Like, I get it. He's trying to better himself. But the methodology and the pathway he took led to him taking a step back in his core game. Got away from that. The one thing I would say, so, he was 4-11 with a 5.47 ERA in 23 starts in 2022. It was terrible. He did log 107 innings of work. He had a stint on the IL, maybe 2 stints. I can't actually recall, but one of them I feel is like a phantom stint. And then he actually got hurt. But actually his FIP, although his ERA was 5.47, his FIP was closer to 4. So although there was poor performance in there and the long ball was hurting him and he ran into trouble, felt like he also, the numbers suggest equally, he was a touch unlucky and that inflated his numbers, the bad luck. So he came back out in 2023 and we're thinking, hey, is Trevor back? Is Trevor back? Is Trevor back? And it looked like he had turned a corner, to be honest with you, but only managed 18 innings of work in 2023. He was removed from a game. I remember the interview after the game and him saying, like, I felt like I could have carried on. It was precautionary. Remember last year, anything the Marlins guys would say after the game about injuries, it would be the complete opposite. Whatever they said, it's the opposite. I don't know if they were coached to do that or if that's just what they actually thought, but it felt like every time a Marlins guy went down, they would say, I'm fine. I'm going to be back soon. It's a day-to-day thing. Next thing, they're out for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 seasons. I don't know. It's kind of crazy the way that kind of happened for the Marlins. So I don't trust anything the Marlins say directly, the players, about their injuries. But he got hurt. He ended up on the IL. He then was rehabbing and then had another injury where he tore his non-throwing lat. And that ended his season. So a really tough year for Trevor Rogers from an injury perspective, where what felt like probably a niggle, a minor injury, ended up being something more serious that he ended up hurting. Was he overcompensating? Maybe. I don't know. But let's not forget here, or I'll remind you anyway, Trevor Rogers, he's only just turned 26. And frankly, guys, he has everything needed. He has all the attributes. I feel like he's such a level-headed dude, a nice dude. He's willing to work. He's trying to put the work in. He's shown flashes of ace potential. We can't deny that in 2021. He's got everything. We've forgotten about him a bit, but in terms of comeback player of the year, Trevor Rogers, for me, ticks every box and has the potential to be that guy for the Marlins. He really does. FanGraphs have him going 130 innings of 4 ERA ball. I think that's fair. And as I've already said, I think that would be more than acceptable from Trevor Rogers and would go a huge way of covering the innings that we're losing from Sandy Alcantara. From a Marlins perspective, for me, this is more about the innings for Trevor. And for me, I'd just like to see him go back to that fastball changeup mix. Like that combo, the core combo that works so effectively. Let's get back to that. Adjusting that mix, it felt like it threw it off. But frankly, the Marlins desperately need Trevor Rogers to be healthy and to be back to a degree of quality. And if he is, huge boost. Huge boost for the Marlins. It means as they start the year with everyone healthy, and we know they'll need, and everyone will have their own stints and their ailments through the year. But we look at that 5: Jesus, Yuri, Brax, Eddie, Trevor. That 5, it's an exciting 5. It may not be the best 5. It's one of the cheapest, though, and it's one of the best. It is one of the best. It's top 5, probably, in terms of talent, stuff, everything. So the Marlins have done, I keep on saying this, the Marlins have done the hard work with the pitching. They have. The rotation, it's a rotation that many other clubs are envious of at this point for many, many reasons. When your top earner and your ace is Jesus Luzardo earning $6 million, and the rest are all on league minimum. I think Trevor Rogers may be into year 1 ARB, but it'll be a low ARB number because, well, he hasn't played last couple of seasons. When he has, it's not been good. So, Trevor, he is for me the one to watch, and for me, the most likely comeback player. There's another likely comeback player as well we're going to talk about after the first and only ad. And then another guy that I think will be important for the Marlins, but everything suggests that at the moment it's more of a hope and a prayer. But before we do that, let you know about our good friends over at FanDuel, guys. And I'll try and make sure I read the right script this time. I think I did last time anyway, but the NFL regular season is wrapping up. There's still time to get on the action with FanDuel. It is America's #1 sportsbook. Yes, you heard that right. #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers, yes, if you are new to FanDuel, you get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Win or lose. $150 in bonus bets. The app is super easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet that include live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab, and you can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. I love the sound of this parlay hub. The best way to find popular parlays and more. And more. They've got even more than that. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, guys, you're back here with me, Peter Pratt, on Thursday, the 4th of Jan, second episode of 2024, and we are talking arms to watch. We've also had to cover the breaking news that Ryan Jensen has been claimed by the Minnesota Twins. The Marlins lose him. Don't think that was in the plan. I think they were hoping he'd sneak through waivers and then go down to provide AAA depth that the Marlins will need. And we are talking arms today. In the first part of the show, we took Trevor Rogers. Think he's going to be the comeback player of the year for the Marlins. Fangraphs have him going 130 innings, a 4 ERA ball. For me, I would absolutely take that right now. There is more than that in the tank. If Trevor really can find his health and find his groove, there's even a higher ceiling than that. Next guy I want to talk about, again, familiar name. We haven't seen him much at the big league level, and it is Max Meyer. Max Meyer, boy, oh boy. It's been, again, talking about a guy we haven't seen for ages. Max Meyer is that guy. He missed the entire 2023 campaign after making his Marlins debut in 22. Just a handful of starts, just 2 starts. One normal start, then got hurt in his second start. So from a big league perspective, right now, Max Meyer remains unknown. He remains unknown. We don't quite know how good he is, how good he can be, how his game will translate to the big league level. So if you want numbers and you want to think about, okay, what is Max? Who is he? You've got to go back and look at his minor league stuff. And when you look at, well, first of all, he was drafted, 3 overall in the 2019 draft. I feel like the 2019 draft is like the one that's had the most disruption from a draft and a COVID perspective. Obviously, drafted, enter the organization, just kind of find your feet, you're bang ready to go. 2020, no minor league, campaign at all. So feel like that draft has been impacted more than any, albeit frankly, the whole of the minor league guys have all been impacted negatively, I think. So in his first season, his first true season, he was doing some work at what did they call it? The complex, the COVID complex. I don't even know what they called it, but they did have a complex and Max was throwing down there. So we did see little flashes of Max Meyer. But anyway, 2021 was his first real go at it with the Marlins. 100 innings of quality work in Double-A. He went straight to Double-A, 100 innings of quality work, 20 starts, and a 2.41 ERA, baby. K/9 was just over 10. We were getting really excited about Max Meyer at this point. I remember it, thinking, okay, he's done this at Double-A at this point in 2021. What's 2022 going to bring? And are we going to see Max? A lot of people were like, nah, we're not going to be seeing Max. It was pretty clear we were going to be seeing Max. In terms of his game, his makeup, I think this is a really intriguing thing with Max Meyer. When you think of Max, and when I think of him, I think of an elite slider. It's kind of what sticks out in my mind is he's got a tenacity about him. He's got a desire. He's not the biggest dude in terms of build, but I think from a mental perspective, like it's all there and it's all cooking. And I think the slider is elite. I think it will play. It will really play. The fastball's okay. But really, he's a 2-pitch guy at this point, and he's maybe working on a 3rd pitch. We'll wait to see how developed that 3rd pitch is in 2024. I think it's mainly the changeup he's focused on in terms of adding, which kind of is like Mel Stottlemyre's that's his calling card, right? You need to add a pitch. What do the Marlins do? They add you a changeup, and it's normally a good one. Like, that's the hallmark of Marlins pitchers ever since Mel Stottlemyre has just sprinkled his stardust on everyone in the past multiple years. So I think that's the expectation is Max adds that changeup, adds that to the elite slider and the okay fastball, and, we'll see where we go. So Max has been away for a season and a half, effectively. But when I then think about, okay, 2-pitch guys that have been successful, the guy that I immediately think of, because he's been one of the most successful and one of the best pitchers in the game, is Spencer Strider. And when I look at Spencer Strider, firstly, when I look at his numbers and his career, it's a really interesting one. When I look at his numbers in the minors, he was drafted in the same draft as Max Meyer, actually. He was drafted in the 4th round, I think 125th, in that range overall. 4th round pick, Max Meyer, 1st round pick, 3 overall. Spencer Strider, though, remember now that Max, 20 starts in AA in 2021 with a 2.41 ERA. Spencer Strider, he had 14 starts at AA in 21, so it's the same year as Max, 63 innings of work and a 4.71 ERA. The K per 9 was significantly greater than Max Meyer's at 13, just over 13. A reminder that Max's was just over 10. So when you're comparing the guys then, they're effectively from the same draft. They were the same age. They had quite similar, pretty similar games and makeups. And when you look at the AA performance and numbers, Max Meyer at that point, based on what we were seeing, he was outperforming Spencer Strider at that point. And what we've seen from Spencer Strider then specifically is that he's been able to translate that type of game to the big league level. And that devastating slider, he just leans heavily on that. And really, that's what the Marlins are hoping to see. And what I'm hoping to see from Max Meyer is, can that type of profile, which is Max Meyer's profile, which is pretty much the same profile as Spencer Strider, can that translate? Spencer Strider is saying it can. They're the same draft, similar makeup, same age. Then, this is the other thing, thinking about what Max Meyer's role could be. I've already talked about, I think the rotation, if everyone's healthy, looks full. So what are the Marlins going to do with Max Meyer? He looks like he's going to be full go for spring, which is really encouraging. Spencer Strider, after that 2021 campaign we've already talked about, he ended up pretty much, I think, straight away starting in the bullpen for the Braves. He went into the 22 season in the Braves bullpen, performed really well in the pen. An opportunity arose. He then transitioned into the rotation and hasn't looked back since. He went over 180 innings in 2023. And when I think about what the Marlins are going to do with Max Meyer, returning from Tommy John, for me, this makes the most sense at this juncture for the Marlins, and taking such a similar approach that the Braves have taken with Spencer Strider. Effectively, use him in the pen early in 24, let him settle back in, manage his workload, and then when required, and he will be required, taking that step up into the rotation, building himself up in that rotation, similar to maybe the way that Brian Hoeing did last year and others, etc. For me, I just look at that and think, that's the exact perfect situation for Max Meyer and for the Marlins. Ease him back in, manage his workload, but don't get and equally learning as he's going, because he's still new to the big leagues. And if he continues to perform at high level, then at some point there'll be an opportunity for him to transition into the rotation. The other option clearly is that he starts in AAA. So one is the other option. But frankly, the Marlins, they're going to need all the arms they can get. They particularly need a power righty, out of this pen. Like, it's just so lefty heavy. Like, again, Max really fits that. So my gut feel at this point, if Max is healthy and performs pretty well in spring, is that he starts the season in the Marlins bullpen and follows suit with how the Braves manage Spencer Strider. And to be honest with you, I often look to the Braves to consider what good or success looks like. And for me, Max should start in the pen, see how it goes. It's exactly what they did with Strider. It worked out for them. It worked out for that profile. There's no reason why it couldn't work for Max and the Marlins. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are on Max generally in terms of the profile. People with a much more insightful and analytical mind will probably dig into the numbers and say, Pete, Max Meyer and Spencer Strider, they are nothing alike. Please let me know if that is the case. High level, I feel like Max has been badged as a 2-pitch guy. I feel like Strider, badged as a 2-pitch guy, leans heavily on the slider, same as Max. Similar age, same draft. A lot of comparisons there, in my opinion. Final guy, and then we'll get out of here, Ryan Weathers. So Ryan Weathers, going back, we may have covered this in this pod when he was acquired, but going back, he was drafted 7th overall in 2018. He's had a bit of a weird career path as well, where pitched well in A-ball, in 2019. Obviously, then the COVID year kicks in again, so 2020 stops his progress. He then ends up, so he's basically pitched in A ball, nothing in 2020, or probably the COVID complex. He then ends up throwing over 90 innings in 2021 for the Padres at the big league level, including 18 starts. He's just 21 years of age at this point. So he's gone A ball, COVID, shut down, big leagues, pretty much. He had a 5.30-ish ERA, 5.3 something ERA. So it wasn't amazing, but for a 21-year-old that hadn't pitched at all the year before, feels okay. Feels okay, to be honest with you. And this is it with Ryan Weathers. When I look at him and I think 7th overall, young dude, high school dude, again, talking about the way the development path has gone, it feels like it's been really disjointed for him, really disjointed. And so I do wonder if, just a change of organization, something different, bit of Marlins, pitching development sprinkled in there, there could be a way to unlock this guy, because clearly there was like a really high projection for him when he was originally drafted. Pitched a ton of innings in AAA in 2022. Few more starts in the bigs for the Padres in 23. Poor results. Didn't really pitch well with the Marlins either. Listen, you look at Ryan Weathers' numbers, basically since the COVID shutdown, at any level, with any club, in any role, they've been terrible. They've been terrible, to be honest with you. The only comfort you can have is Ryan Weathers' final start for the Marlins in 23 against the Pirates that just were on the beach at that point. So, to be honest with you, you look at Weathers and you think projecting him to be anything is a bit of a hope and a prayer at this stage, because he just hasn't shown it at all, other than that one game against the Pirates when they checked out. What role is he going to take? It sounds like he's going to be maybe used in the swingman type of role, long man role, however you want to phrase it, out of the pen, which makes sense. The Brian Hoeing role from last year, or the Cody Poteet role from the year before. Hey, Cody Poteet's just signed with the Yankees, I believe. So after a year out, that's an interesting one. Surprised the Marlins weren't actually in on Cody Poteet after, obviously a good experience of Poteet in the years that he was here. Nevertheless, Ryan Weathers at this point, this is more of a prayer, a hope and a prayer with him, to be honest with you. What we've seen hasn't been good. What he was drafted as was a stud. The Marlins have a past history of taking on high kind of projectable guys that haven't quite found their way, make some adjustments, and allow them to come back stronger. Will the Marlins do it this time? History tells us yes. Does Ryan Weathers, the question I've got for him with Ryan Weathers is, considering the poor results thus far, the record, does he believe that he can do it now? Does he still believe in himself? That's the question. That's the question that I know he'll be asking himself. He'll be doubting himself. Can I pitch at this level? Am I a quad A arm? Heck, am I a triple A arm? They're the questions that Ryan Weathers is going to be asking himself. The Marlins need to tap into that and work out how do you, if he needs to, and I don't know this because I never spoke to the guy, but where's his head at? Where's the confidence levels at? Does he still believe in himself? Because he was asked to do a little bit too much too soon, too early with okay results, but really hasn't been able to find it ever since. That's going to be the question for Mel Stottlemyre and all of the staff. Ryan Weathers does have a role. It won't be in the rotation to start, but as we know, there will be times where he'll be asked to step in and start games. If the Marlins can sprinkle on the Jesus Luzardo dust, finding a way to convert a former top prospect back into an ace, and Jesus Luzardo at this point is an ace, then that's going to be another fat dub for the Marlins in terms of their trading and their pitching development. Guys, thanks for joining me on Locked On Marlins. 30 minutes are approaching. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. Please, guys, in the comments, particularly on YouTube, let me know your thoughts. Always great to hear you guys and your thoughts. These are just my thoughts on these guys. I can see Trevor being a huge piece in this Marlins rotation, subject to health. I can see Max Meyer starting in the pen. I think that's the perfect role for him, and moving up into the rotation. I think his game can translate to the big league level and he can have success. I think if Ryan Weathers, if the Marlins can make some minor tweaks, get the head right, I think there's something there that they can work with, but it's all on him at this phase. I look forward to seeing you guys very, very soon.